Hey everyone, this is Chai Tea here with another episode of my From Scratch Ironman series. This series is basically my version of an Ironman in Albion Online with a few changes that I deemed fair. I like to call this a softcore Ironman because I can still interact with a lot of players, but you can check the rules in the series down in the description. If you guys are new to my channel, this is my 7th episode of my From Scratch Ironman series, and I post a progress video every week, so consider subscribing so you don't miss any of the action. In this episode, you guys will see that we traveled all the way to the Fort Sterling locations, hit a bunch of solo randomized dungeons, and made some fame progress. So with all that being said, it's tea time. So to kick things off, we actually did a lot of refining, and we did the cloth refining for this one, and this was in order for us to start to level up our crafting so that we could start to craft tier 5 in our cloth armor sets. So this was definitely very helpful so that we could actually wear tier 5.1, 5.2, and 5.3 cloth armor sets, which will definitely help in being able to fame farm and do higher tier dungeons, as well as maybe win a little bit more arenas. But doing this, I actually noticed that most of the crafting stations in Thetford were actually very overpriced. Like, I looked at the map and 90% of all the places were above 150% use cost or use fee. And I didn't even notice last episode, but I think it was like that also. But because of this, I was using a lot of my silver on crafting. And this didn't really help as I didn't really have very much silver to begin with. And it's definitely something that I need to conserve on. So what I did instead was, instead of just biting the bullet and having to craft all my stuff at the Thetford location still and just run me dry, I actually decided to waste a bunch of time. Well, I wouldn't say waste, but to throw away a bunch of time and travel all the way to Fort Sterling. So I did this with all of my items in my bank because one, it was very full. I had a very full bank and I didn't really want to continue building my island in Thetford just because I didn't really think it was a very smart location, especially with the dark zone portals. It wasn't really an ideal tier zone for me, and then the crafting costs were obviously not very fair, so I made the decision to travel all the way to Fort Sterling. I made maybe 3 or 4 trips with all my stuff. I wanted to be able to develop my island a little bit more in Fort Sterling, just so that I could get a little bit of those items away from my just main city bank, in order to like clear up some space and actually be able to like organize things more nicely. So this took a little while definitely, but I think it was worth it in the long run because we will be able to get these less usage costs. In Fort Sterling, the usage costs vary from like 10% to about 50%, which is greatly cheaper than in Thetford. I don't really know why Thetford was like that. I think they're just having a monopoly down there and just a bunch of rich people are just taking over. Afterwards, I did go ahead and craft all the rest of my materials in order to save money from using it at the Thetford locations. And then with that, I actually had some tier 5.1 resources, which I ended up crafting into a full set of my mage armor and also a tier 5.1 nature staff. So this set will definitely help me when trying to clear dungeons. So I actually traveled into the Dark Zone, which was at the Fort Sterling location. So I actually traveled to a tier 6 location in the Dark Zone to try to find some solo randomized dungeons, and I actually, instead of just skipping them and going straight for the chest for the loot, I actually wanted to do more of some fame farming, so I actually just ran through and tried to kill all the mobs as fast as I could. Obviously it's not super efficient with my setup right now using a nature staff, but it'll definitely help me leveling up my nature staffs and my mage armor. Afterwards, I actually traveled all the way back to Thetford because my island was still there, and I had a tier 4 ox just breeding in my island. So I wanted to pick that up, kind of develop that so that I could use my tier 4 island, because I noticed that the maximum load for a tier 4 ox was actually substantially higher than the maximum load for a tier 3 ox. So I wanted to get those rolling, get the ball rolling on those so I could start breeding tier 4 oxes. I destroyed my island over in Thetford, and I went and developed it over in Fort Sterling now. So I had the same setup going. I had my one breeding location and one crop farm. So that'll help me just so I can keep on leveling up those two at the same time as the crops feed into the animals as well. And what I'll want to do eventually is to be able to stock up on a bunch of armor sets in order to be able to do more PvP content and definitely ZVZ content, so that I can just go back to my island and re-gear. So in order to do this, I did need to go and gather a lot of the tier 4 cloth, and I wanted to do that, and the only way I could do that was in the Black Zone, because I was in Fort Sterling, so this wasn't too much of a problem. I tried to look for an aspect during this time as well, but I could not find any. I looked for quite a long time actually, which was kind of surprising because I did find them that one time last episode. So before I head off today, I just wanted to give you guys a quick look at my Destiny board. I haven't really shown it very often, and I just wanted to give you guys a look on how things were progressing. So as we first jump in here, I'm just going to focus on the things that I mainly level, which is going to be my nature staffs. It's all the way up to level 33 for this one. I am trying to get it all the way up to obviously tier 100, but tier 70 is definitely a goal for the rejuvenating breeze. Over on the masteries, I have 12 for the great nature and 7 for the wild staff. I haven't really been using the wild staff very often anymore, but leveling off the great nature staff during solo dungeons is coming along very nicely. For the cloth armor sets, most of them are about the same, so 42. Not too bad over here, definitely trying to get it up a little bit higher, progressing a little bit, and I'm only using this set, so definitely going pretty fast. I'm almost up to the tier 7, obviously I can't really craft those yet, but definitely a good goal to achieve. For the shoes, I'm going to have a mastery level of 22 for the mage sandals and 4 for the scholar sandals. I just started using the scholar sandals recently just because I thought it would be a better fit for my build. I'm still going to level these up definitely later down the road. For my chest armor pieces, I'm just used mainly the cleric robe, so that's going to be about mastery 22, and then for the mage robe, sometimes I use that, just only a 4. As well as the helms, I like to kind of switch it up a little bit, so that's why they're not as high as a level. So mage is just 4, cleric's going to be 12, and scholar cow's going to be 13. So I'm going to be using the scholar cow probably most often, maybe the cleric cow once I start doing more group dungeons. I think crafting is the only thing right now that's really slacking right now. So Over here you can see that in the nature staff I got tier 10, so it's level 10. I can craft the tier 5. So I can go ahead and level this up a little bit later once I start to get a little bit higher gathering level and start to get a lot more of these tier 5 materials, as I'll need a lot to be able to level this all the way up to level 30. This one I don't really have that much levels in my crafting. I just kind of do it whenever I actually need to push a level, so all of them are going to be the ones that I had recently and the only ones that I can wear. So yeah, so level 5 for all those. Still level 1 for the Holy Crafter. For anything else like this, I'm not sure if I'm actually going to try to level up these anytime soon, as I will need leather, and leather is the only one of my gathering skills that I haven't really pushed and used learning points for, because I haven't really been focusing on that one, as I don't use very much leather. But these ones are definitely gonna need it, so I'm gonna have to do that sometime. But for the gathering, it's definitely something that takes a long time, and I'm gonna definitely have to use some learning points for. So I did use that for the expert fiber and the expert lumberjack, but I might as well do that for the expert ore miner as well once I get that to the 20% here. And definitely the animal skinner, so I won't have to completely grind out that super hard. So if you guys made it all the way through, I want to thank you guys for all watching. Leave me a comment and like if you enjoyed it. I appreciate any feedback you guys have, and if you'd like to see more of these videos, please consider subscribing, as I make these videos weekly. So have a good one, and I'll catch you on the next tea party.